So this is Joe. Joe is a licensed insurance agent in the state of California, and we have some questions that you guys have pre-submitted. We're going to go into the questions, and if you have any questions during our live event, go ahead and feel free to type them in that comment box down there, and we'll answer your questions.
Awesome.
Got it? Okay,
Very
we're good.
Well, thank you. Thank you for at least having me. I mean, these are always good opportunities to at least kind of educate everybody how certain things work, right? And if you're not, it's not an everyday occurrence, not insurance, it's not a front of mind kind of a thing. So thank you for, allowing me the opportunity to just kind of get the word out in terms of different options for folks that are out there.
We do need options, so.
Do need options. So there was a ton of questions that came in, so that was encouraging to see. So I'm just going to kind of run down the list, and we'll just kind of talk them out together. And along the way, if something doesn't make sense, Christine, chirp in and let me know. And
yep.
We'll
and feel free again, comment, say hi to each other in the chat room, whatever.
Fantastic. So question number 1, do I really need life insurance? It's a fantastic question. Ultimately, the answer to this question is up to you. So I would ask you a few questions if you need life insurance. So with most of our clients, the things you want to take in consideration is what happens if you pass away prematurely to your family, your friends, your loved ones? What state are they in? Are they going to need financial assistance? Does anybody count on you for income? Right? Those are the things that should be considered. That question really is an individual one, right? And everybody has to kind of ask that for themselves, or answer that for themselves, I should say. It's a fantastic question, but it is a wide spectrum, and I don't want to be here for 2 hours on this one, so we'll keep moving along. But
so not everybody has to have life insurance depending on their situation, right?
It's really up to them. Really, I mean, the fact of the matter is life insurance is for people left behind, not necessarily for you.
Okay.
Right?
That's a good point.
So, if you take that into consideration in terms of do I need it, well, that's your ultimate answer to that one, right? Mm-hmm. Does everybody need it? No. If you're comfortable not having that as a backdrop, then fantastic. Good for you.
Sorry. Spandon's adjusting the camera really quick.
Sorry. Because we were going into mute.
Oh.
And because the stand was clamping down on the
volume. Can you hear us out there? Does anyone... Can you, write in really quick if you can hear us and if you heard that whole thing in the beginning? Because we might have been on mute.
Let me sum it up in a nutshell. The question was, do I need life insurance? The answer is, it's up to you. If you want more on that one, you'll always feel free to reach out to me via email, joe@joestretch.com. Happy to answer any of those questions. And again, that's just kind of because we're not sure of our technical
yeah, we're just refreshing.
So another question coming through. What options do I have if I denied coverage? Well, also a great question. You do have options. Your options are essentially to talk to different insurance companies, right? Every insurance company is going to have their certain set of underwriting standards, right?
Just gonna move this closer to
you.
So sorry.
So it may or may not depend on the company that you're dealing with. Now, I represent a major company. We're not disclosing who that is for compliance purposes, but do know that every company has a different set of underwriting standards. If you are denied, there is a waiting period of a year, and you can also reapply. So
you have to wait a year if
you have to wait a year. So the assumption there is that, right, if there's a health reason for being denied, that possibly something has changed.
Okay, got it.
Possibly something has changed. So next question was, does my illness have to be in remission to apply for life insurance? And the answer is no. We'll get into it a little further with the rest of these questions, but there's a wide gamut of what's available in terms of remission or not remission, right? A lot of this has to do with the stage of the illness, how far into it you are time-wise, medically-wise. There's other factors involved. Know this, every situation is unique to the individual. and there is no blanket statement that can be made. So, in answer to the question, do I have to be in remission? No, you do not. And it just really depends on the individual situation and circumstance.
So while you're talking about while you're in remission, I know this is a question later down the list.
Yeah.
But if you are in remission, when is the best time to apply for life insurance?
So, and again, there's another question down the road here, but
Yeah.
the
I'm
best
just touching
time,
it real
the
quick.
best time to apply is now. If it's a consideration for you, don't wait, right? You don't know what tomorrow holds, right? Factually speaking, start the process. That's the simplest answer. You can make that determination. So in the state of California, if we sign up a life insurance contract and you go through the process, and I put it in your hand, you still have 30 days to change your mind. So there are no obligations, right? So if it's of concern for your family to have something in the event that you leave us too early, start the process. Right?
If you decide to cancel that, you said you have 30 days to cancel it. If you decide to cancel that, do you get all of your money back?
If you cancel within that first 30 days, yes, you do.
Okay, great.
Yes, you do. So going further down the line, you decide to cancel, it's just a matter of how far you're into the contract.
Okay.
Right? So
Great.
there. How do you apply for life insurance? Great question, right? Everybody takes it for assume that everybody just knows. So there is a process that goes along with it. The process essentially has to do with a health questionnaire, right? And the health questionnaire is, from everything from do you drag race, skydive, rock climb to,
All of the above?
all the above to current medical conditions, family history. But again, those things are taken into consideration to properly underwrite the person. They are not exclusions. They do not automatically disqualify you from any point. Now, can it? Sure, it could disqualify you, but it really just depends, again, on the certain situation. There is no one right answer when it comes to that. So the application process is done in person. I do need a physical signature from you, so if it's something that we're going to do, eventually we're going to meet in person. California right now still does not allow us to do that electronically. Some states will, but if you're here in California, not the case. You have to actually physically sign and then going through the process. But the main part of that is just a question and answer kind of a thing. From there, you're going to get a phone call that verifies the answers on your written application. From there, depending on what it is, there's a search of medical records. There is a live scan examination, which essentially is a urine and blood analysis, right?
And smoking.
Smoking, that's a question, right?
Yeah.
Smoking, chewing tobacco, smoke cigars, right? All those things are taken into consideration. We get a lot of questions about marijuana use. It doesn't necessarily exclude you. Okay?
Oh, that's good.
Well, it's good to know, right? Because
especially for patients.
it's
yeah.
the white elephant in the room.
It's always the
doesn't
white
always get
elephant.
talked about, but that is not an exclusion. It is not considered tobacco use.
Perfect.
So that's an important
I
distinction
did
to
not
make.
know that, so thank you.
So the application process is, there's a few steps to the process, but it's nothing that you can't do or shouldn't do. Right? Does that make sense?
That makes sense to me.
All right. So what is the difference between preferred and standard rate? This has to do completely with your health rating. So
Can you kind of explain what
Sure.
a rating is
So-
for people that don't?
So when you apply and going through that application process, there are, again, completely dependent on the company. Everybody's going to have a different approach. The carrier that I represent has they have 16 different levels of health concern, right? So when you say the difference between standard and preferred, that's 2. There's 14 others to consider. So
So if you don't qualify in those two categories,
here's-
you will
right,
fit
right,
into
right.
some category, right? Or maybe.
9 times out of 10, there will be a category that fits,
Okay.
right? Now, will it be expensive? It certainly can be, but it's up to you at that point, right? You've gone through the process. You're presented back with what the insurance company can offer you. If you want to take it, if it's important to you, do it. If not, it's no big deal. It's no big deal. So standard and preferred, those are commonly used terms that are loosely associated with where your medical qualifications will put you.
And you mentioned that they access your medical records. They have to give permission and sign off for all the like HIPAA stuff, or how does that work?
Through the application process, yes, great question. Through the application process, you are going to give them permission to do that. A lot of the times it is a medication search. Sometimes it's an actual medical procedure search. Really just depends. Again, there's no one right answer.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is taken on their own individual account. So, there is uniqueness in the process in that regard. Right? There's no blanket that gets thrown on lupus patients or cancer patients in remission, or there's a classification.
Can you let them know how important it is to be honest on these applications?
Honest on the application. So, within the application process, there's multiple questions. All told, it's 25, 30 different health questions, right? If we're dishonest on one piece of it and it comes up later in the process through either a telephone interview that you're going to do when they're confirming what is on the application, or maybe it's through a medical search, if it pops up, it's going to deny you based on morality, really, right? Because at that point, if you're dishonest about something, you're potentially dishonest about something else, right? So, life insurance is not like health insurance, where pre-qualifying conditions, everybody qualifies. Unfortunately, that's not the case here. That said, there is appropriate rating levels depending on your situation. So don't think that you have to hide something just to get the insurance, because it may in fact come back and you'd be worst case scenario. Whereas in hindsight you can say, well, geez, I wish I would have just taken a little bit higher payment and had the insurance for my family's well-being, right? Because really that's what this is about. What's important to you is going to be, what happens after I'm gone? Mm-hmm. What do I want to leave? What is my legacy? Right? Those are the questions that you have to ask yourself, and that's not something that I can answer. But through a lot of conversations, what I do mostly is educating folks and just kind of help them identify that within their life at the moment. Right? Good. Makes sense. That's all that matters. Good questions for you guys. You Lupus Foundation, man, they're coming after it. I like it. What is the difference between whole life and term insurance? That is a big question. The simple answer is that whole life is just that. You bought insurance for your whole life. It's one medical examination, and that insurance, assuming your premiums are paid, will take you through the end of life. Right?
Can you have whole life with a chronic condition?
Yes. Oh, it doesn't matter. So it doesn't matter. So the difference between whole life and term insurance is a personal choice of the applicant, mm-hmm. right? So it doesn't matter. There's not you don't qualify for whole life. You have to have term insurance. It doesn't work that way. It's your choice. You either qualify or you don't. How you pay for the policy is up to you. Term life and whole life are two options to pay for those policies. So term life is essentially what it says, right? There's a term. Sometimes it's 10 years, sometimes 20, 30, but there's a definitive term. And at the end of that term, your premium will go up, right? Because you're older at that point. Mm-hmm. So the benefit to it is that you can buy a lot higher face amount. You can get a lot more insurance for less money. But there's an end. End date, right? Yeah. So the whole life is a cash value policy, a permanent policy. They're classified in different forms and fashions, but there's literally hundreds of different types of insurance policies, life insurance policies. Whole life and term are two generalizations, basically, right? I refer to them mostly likely as short-term, long-term, or temporary, permanent. And you can combine these as well, and we do that actually quite frequently, right? Where we'll take the temporary insurance to cover a temporary need, like a mortgage. Right? A mortgage is 30 years long. They say, Joe, I'm going to live in that house the rest of my life. I love it here. I like my neighbors. Everything's great. I'm going to pay it off, and I'm going to stay here forever. Great. We want to just ensure that that debt is secured, so that if something does happen, your family can stay in that house. Well, after that home is paid off, maybe you're 60, 65 years old, and if you go to apply for that contract now, it's more expensive. So there's a permanent piece of the insurance that will carry you through your end of days.
So there's a oh.
No.
We just lost you. Hold on. Are we there? I'm so sorry. We flew off the camera stand, which is what we were.
And since we're talking about life insurance, earthquake insurance too.
Right. We do need that here in California. Okay, so I think we're set again. Sorry.
All right.
My fault.
so getting back to your question, whole life, term life, two different generalizations of policies. Right?
Sorry, I'm just making sure it's staying up.
Technical difficulties there. And again, as we're going through these questions, and these are all fantastic questions, so always feel free to email me. We'll leave you a phone number. There's going to be my contact info. Any of this stuff that you want to talk out further, I'm happy to do it. For the majority of my time with life insurance, just simply educating folks on how it works, the ins, the outs, the goods, the bads, right? And then they make the decision that's best for them and their families. That's the most important part. Being able to make an educated decision, Christine, is really the biggest factor in who you end up doing business with.
Yeah.
Right? Do I have the correct information to make the right decision?
Yeah. How do you, this isn't on the list, but how are you supposed to find an agent that you trust?
Interview them. Right? It's like if you're a renter, interview your tenants. If you're a employer, you interview your employees. Go spend some time, sit down and talk to them. That should be your first indication. If you're calling an insurance agent and you can't get a hold of them and you can't schedule a time with them,
they're probably not.
Do you really want to have your life insurance with them?
Yeah.
So that's the question. But and it's a great question. How do you find somebody you can trust? Referrals. Somebody you know that has had a good experience with them, knows them personally. Every insurance agent, I can't say every, I can't generalize.
Yeah.
A lot of insurance agents are hard to catch.
Yeah.
Right? They're hard to catch. They're busy people. It's just a matter of where their priorities are and what their supporting staff is like. Some of them you can't catch because they have a team of 20 people. That's a little bit different, right, than one individual guy that's just never in the office.
Yeah.
So it's a personal preference.
And I know Joe, so if you're in the Bay Area, call him, because I trust him. But that's it. Go ahead.
Well, thank you. 20 years it took you to say that.
Right, it took me that long.
What is the best option for patients in regards to policies? There isn't a best option. The best option is whatever you choose after you get some education and go with. So I'm often asked, how much life insurance is the best amount? What's the best amount of life insurance? So my answer is always the same. Some. As long as you have something in place, if it's important to you, like we get a lot of folks that say, we want that $1 million policy, but I can't afford it. I'm going to wait. Well, if you pass away in the meantime, could your family have used $500,000? Mm-hmm. Or no, they just wanted the $1 million? Yeah. Right?
Yeah, definitely. So weigh your options.
Weigh your options, for sure. There's not only one answer there. So again, personal choice. Is it true? Some of these I haven't read, so
we're surprising Joe on the spot. We're trying to see how much he knows.
Is it true that if you have been able to control your condition with medication, diet, and lifestyle changes over a period of time, it can help with the application process? Yes, that is true. So again, having to do with your health screening, this is a lifestyle, right? In terms of diet and what have you. A good example is, if you have a chronic condition and you're overweight, that's one thing. If you have a chronic condition and your weight is in line with the tables and the, what they're looking for in that situation, it does help, right? So it's yes is the answer to that question.
So keep taking your meds. Is it in
control? Right? You're under a doctor's care. Right, that doctor's care is probably the one we're going to go to in terms of that. But frankly speaking, it can help you, but don't let it be an excuse to say, "Well, I'm going to wait until I get to that point." Yeah, you don't know. Tomorrow's not promised, right? Yep. And especially as we're with the topic of life insurance. Yeah, don't wait. Don't wait. You can always make changes down the line.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Going back to our other, with that in mind, in terms of changes, oftentimes going back to the difference between term and whole life, oftentimes we can take those temporary policies and convert them the other way into permanent life insurance. So that is an option as well. And a lot of the times if budget is an issue, we'll start that way so that the coverage is in place for an amount of time.
Yeah.
And then over the course of time, once a year, every couple of years, right, every 5 years, there's no limit on it.
Mm-hmm.
We slowly move that over into permanent insurance to kind of take care of the long process.
Yeah.
Good. I've been denied insurance in the past. What can I do to help me get approved? Does a previous denial hurt my chances of getting approved? Another great question. So the answer to that is no. Being denied previously does not decrease your chances of getting approved. If you're coming back to the same company, if you're denied, some of them will have a waiting period. Usually it's 12 months. So if you get denied, wait 12 months, you can try it again. Or you can try a different life insurance company.
I was just going to ask
Right.
that. Can
There is, yeah,
bypass the year and go somewhere
absolutely.
else?
Check it out. Try it somewhere else. It really depends. Again, everybody has their own. They're called actuary tables, right? Those are all the same. The interpretation of those tables is different by the company, right?
So there's no permanent record of all
There's
the times
no
you've
permanent
applied,
record.
right?
No,
Okay.
exactly. It's not like a credit inquiry, right?
Yeah, it's not gonna affect you
They don't
down
pull
the
your
road.
credit and say, "Oh, well, you got denied over here. What's going on, Christine?"
Yeah.
So no, absolutely. So some education and some tenacity, right? Would be
Yep.
my best answer there.
Cool.
What is a final expense policy? Are the qualifications different from other policies? So let's take this in two steps. What is a final expense policy? So the final expense policy is put into place originally with that specifically in mind, right? I want to cover my final expenses. I want to cover my funeral costs. Final expense policies are usually $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. Typically, they are cash value permanent life insurance policies, and they're just a small face amount, right?
And they're a different requirement, though, right?
They are
so
a different
can you tell us
requirement,
what the
sure.
requirement is for that?
Absolutely. Again, every company is going to be different. What I can speak to is that our final expense policy that I have access to starts at age 50 and ends at age 80. So within that 30-year window is when you're eligible for these policies, right? There's no medical exam that goes along with these. There is the original application that goes along with these, but there are looser underwriting stances because they're smaller amounts of money. Now, that said, I actually have a client she just is in her early 90s, has had this final expense policy for over 30 years, right?
Wow.
And she's very
Still
healthy,
going?
still going, and she's in great shape. And her cash value has exceeded the face amount of the policy just based on the fact of time. So, I'm sure she never thought that was the case or that was her plan.
Yeah. But it ended up working out.
It ended up
for her.
working out fantastic for her. So it's designed again for something, right? The idea of something. I want to have something in place. I don't want to burden my family with the cost of a funeral. Average cost of a funeral, as far as we're aware, is somewhere between $10,000 and $12,000. If you want the Elvis approach, maybe 20, 30, but
That's what I'm going with. I'm having a party.
Everybody's going to be a little bit different, but the intent there is to cover basic funeral expenses.
Perfect. I do
Right.
have a question that came in from Elizabeth.
Mhm.
Hi, Elizabeth. Is the application process longer for someone with a chronic illness?
You know what, it can be. So as we mentioned earlier, part of the process is going through the health screen, the medical piece. They're going to want to look at it a little bit longer, and it's not really a matter of are they looking at it longer to drag it out and deny it? No. What they're looking at is they're looking to properly place the risk. Any insurance company, whether it's life insurance and auto insurance, a home, they're looking to properly assess the risk. By definition, an insurance company will try to collect enough premium to pay out the claims that are made, right? That's the intention. So everything gets rated on that level. So yes, it can take longer.
So if it does take longer, really quick, this is my own question. If it does take longer, and you start the process,
Right.
and you pass away while you're doing this whole process, but
Right.
you haven't completed it,
Right.
are you out of luck?
No. So here's the way that
Okay.
works. Great question. So
Thanks.
once so once you go through the process, you sign an application and you exchange money. Once you do that, there becomes a contract, right? Once you have a contract in place, it could pay out, it could not pay out. It would still go through the underwriting process based on standard practice, right? The practices for insurance companies will go through the state's Department of Insurance, so they can't deviate from the process, right? So point being is that had you been alive and gone through the process and they would have approved you at the end, regardless of the level, they will pay out the claim. Okay?
Perfect.
If they would have denied you, they will not pay out the claim. Obviously that poses a, well, they were going to deny it anyway, he's already dead kind of a thing.
Yeah. It's not that way.
It's not that way. It's not that way. There, believe it or not, there is a lot of morality that goes along with this process. So yes, fantastic
That's
question.
good
But
to
yes,
know.
it's good to know because and we use the analogy frequently, right? You walk out our front door and you get hit by a bus, there's still a potential of your family being paid out.
Yep.
You know, a good potential because again, most life insurance policies are approved, but again, like we talked about earlier, there's multiple different levels, right? And so you make the determination based on that at the time. Good question.
I have them all.
You have what? So the follow-up to this was, are the qualifications different from other policies? Yes, it's easier. It's easier to go that route. Does age matter when applying for life insurance? So there are three major factors when applying for life insurance. Your age, whether or not you smoke, and whether or not you're male or female. Right? I know. I don't agree with it either.
I just
Males
had a
are-
look on my face, so that's why he's responding that way.
Females, statistically speaking, live longer by about 5 or 6 years. So female life insurance usually is less expensive than it is for males. Now again, I disagree, but my opinion doesn't matter in that point. Whether or not you smoke, right, has a bearing on it. And then age is probably the biggest determining factor. So you have to be at least 15 days old, right, and as old as 95, right? So in that window, everything changes by age,
Yeah.
right? So
While you're on age,
Sure.
really quick, we do have a lot of patients who have chronic illness and they have children.
yep,
And there is a risk with some of these diseases that their children will develop these diseases.
yes,
So if you were, like with my nieces, we got a life insurance policy as that 15-day mark.
yep.
Or do you recommend that for
Absolutely.
people with a chronic condition for
So-
their children?
So here's the deal with that, right? Because the kid policies, you can only write them on the permanent policies, right? So it's only the cash value policies. So what a lot of folks don't know is that the permanent cash value policies do accrue cash. There is a guaranteed contractual interest rate that you will be getting on the money that's in that account. With kid policies, children's policies, what they have on their time or on their side is time, right? So if you're 4 or 5 years old, 15, 18 years old, you know, that money that gets contributed to that policy will sit and gain interest for as long as that policy is open. So if you get it when they're 10 and now they're 80 years old, well, for the past 70 years, you've been contributing to this. So is it an investment? No. Some agents will indeed pose this as an investment. I would compare it more closely to a savings account. It's a savings account with a guaranteed interest rate that pays a much higher rate of return than if you have your money in Bank of America, Wells Fargo, or any of the
And
other
you can borrow.
big major banks.
Can you borrow against these policies
You
for
can-
children?
Absolutely. So what it really boils down to is the amount of cash that's accrued in the policy. Now it takes time.
Yeah.
These aren't tomorrow kind of a things, you know.
But like if you do it when they're a baby, by the time they're in high school.
So I have these policies as a personal disclaimer. I have these policies on my own two boys, multiple policies actually on each one of them, and it's for that reason. Twofold, really. One, if they do develop a health issue later in life, 20, 30, 50, 60 years old, it's not going to make a difference. The policy's already in place, right? It can never be taken away from you unless you just stop paying it.
Yeah.
The other piece is that of that savings account, right? So if you put money in a 529 plan hoping for college, well, what if they don't go to college? You've created a tax burden potentially, right? This money is in that policy and can be used for anything. Education, buying a house, getting married, take a trip to Disneyland if you like. Whatever the case is, the money is there. It's referred to, most people refer to it as living benefits, right? There's a death benefit, there's a living benefit. The biggest benefit with these children's policies is that $1 is payable. And what I mean by that is that you put, your first payment in there. If indeed they pass away, a year later, a month later, 10 years later, you're getting paid out of that face amount. If you take that same money and you put it into the bank should give you back what you put in minus their fees and their 0.0 whatever interest rate that's been accruing on it. So, yes, does that answer your question?
Yeah, that does.
All right.
We're good.
They're actually great policies. I mean, so as a start, and again, going back to the age piece, because it all is based on age, that's the best time to go with it in terms of having the cheapest possible premium. And usually what we'll do in those cases is we do what's called limited pays, right? You pay into a policy for 10, 15, 20 years and then you're done.
Yeah.
You're done paying on it. The interest continues to accrue and it's paid up, right? It's there forever the rest of their life. So we actually do a lot of it. Almost 20% of our business is actually with children for the living benefits, right? And regardless of whether there's chronic illness in the family or not. Right?
And most people think of getting insurance when something happens. So to prepare ahead of time with your children. I mean, if my parents had a life insurance policy when I was a baby, I would have been okay now, but we're... Joe and I are talking on that one. So.
That's right. That's right. So, and that's a valid point though, right? It's because we live in the Bay Area. It's expensive. Right? Nobody wants to accrue an additional expense, but it's really... Don't accrue that expense now and save some money in the event something does happen, or accrue the expense now knowing that later on you're covered. The worst part about insurance, whether it's life or home or auto, is you buy it when you don't need it, because when you need it, you can't buy it. Right? So that's the trade-off. That's the trade-off.
Cool.
So that was our age question. What is a guaranteed issue plan? So... I'm not sure of the terminology here. Guaranteed issue, by the way I'm reading it, is that it's guaranteed to issue. That would be similar to like a final expense policy, right? Where you're going to get it based on your application process. So that's the only thing I can tell you.
But that's the only one that would probably
Well, I mean, realistically what it is this is some company's terminology from maybe a marketing standpoint, just to kind of help people understand what their underwriting process is, potentially. Again, I don't know, we can't go back to whoever posed the question. So a guaranteed issue plan is along something like that. It's probably going to be a small policy with no underwriting. On the flip side, we have a no underwriting, access to some no underwriting stuff for people that are 35 and younger. So that's a good option too. And I know there's multiple life insurance companies that have that floating out there. So check, ask,
do your research,
do your investigations, talk to people, find other people with life insurance. What do they have? Why do they have it? Unfortunately, a lot of people don't know, and that's it's sad really, because that potentially is a way to either create wealth for a generation, pass wealth to a generation, or just cover financial burdens, right? Yeah. So you should know why you have that policy in place.
Yeah.
Good. What is a rate class and how does it affect my eligibility? So we talked about that a little bit earlier. The rate classes are essentially just based on health, based on condition, based on what comes back in those screenings. So again, there's multiple different levels. You're not locked in. It's not a pass or fail kind of a thing. You can get a B plus or a D minus, right? But D minus will still get you that diploma, right?
That's all that matters.
But in terms of rate classes, that's what those are. It's based off of the health situation at the time.
Perfect.
Hope that answers the question.
Yes.
Is it better to go with a company or an independent life insurance broker? Here's the difference. By definition, an a company, when you say company, I'm assuming, right? I'm making the assumption that you're talking about a
Like a
major
big
insurance
company,
company,
probably,
right?
yeah.
So they're what's called a direct insurer, where their policies are only through that company. Technically, the agent representing that company represents the company. A broker, by definition, represents the client. Now, from that standpoint, it sounds like, well, the broker's going to have my best interest in mind.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily the case, right? But because they are not affiliated with a major company, the only other option they have is to have the client's best interest in mind. It's either
Yeah.
the client or them, right?
Yeah.
So the broker's going to give you options in terms of multiple different companies. That's not always the best option, right? So again, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Do your research, ask around, and find out, right? A lot of brokers, majority of brokers will not do life insurance unless they're a life insurance broker, and then they only do life insurance, right?
Okay.
So again, I'm sure there's somebody in your community that can refer you, that knows somebody, or that has life insurance themselves. Talk to them. Find out what they did. Find out what they did in terms of how they arrived at that policy with that company. And the company does make a difference, right? You're betting that somebody's going to pay my family in potentially 50 or 60 years. Are they going to be here? So solvency is something that wants to be looked at with that company as well.
Yeah, you don't want to go with a brand new insurance company.
No. Right? So, and those reports are available online. You can Google those things as well. Right? In terms of a company's solvency and their net worths and along those lines. There's actually there's a handful of companies, insurance companies that are, at or over 100 years old. Those are the ones you probably want to lean towards. If they can survive 100 years, I mean, that's the Great Depression, 2008.com, the gold crisis, thrift
the year
loan
2000.
Scandal, the year 2000, right? So if you can survive 100 years, you're probably doing something right. The other thing is that check and see if those companies are publicly traded or are they privately owned. That makes a difference as well. Are they owned by the mutual policyholders of the company, or are they there to promote a profit for the board of directors?
Yeah.
Right. So a lot of different factors to take into consideration. Again, always just reach back out. If I can help direct anybody, by all means, just reach out and let us know. Next question is, what is long-term care and how do I apply for it? So long-term care right now it's a hotly debated topic, right? So in California, there are quite a few companies that are abandoning this product, unfortunately. And the reason what happens is that earlier in our conversation, we were talking about insurance company by definition is collecting enough premium to pay out the claim, right? Yeah. And anything more than that should be flushed back out to the policyholders, right? Mm-hmm. So what's happened with long-term care is that with health care, and you guys are going to be the best source for this. Healthcare is super expensive. Long-term care is super expensive. What is happening is that these policies are not collecting enough premium to pay out those claims, and unfortunately, and a lot in California, the companies are simply just not offering anymore.
Oh wow!
Right, so
is it even an option in a lot of places?
You got to search, right?
Okay.
You got to search because this isn't. It's not one company. You got a lot of major players in the market currently who are pulling out of this product for that reason. It's simply just it's too much. And going forward, having that uncertainty and not knowing where that healthcare bill is going to end up, there's a lot of back and forth, and it's super unfortunate because this is a fantastic policy, that long-term care policy. Mm-hmm. So a replacement to it is disability, but that has some dollar amount restrictions, and that's based on your income. It's not the same thing. It's a great question. I don't personally have access to it. I can certainly try to help if that's something that somebody is after.
But it looks like life insurance is a little more beneficial than long-term policy.
So the other part of it is that you can use life insurance, like we talked about earlier, borrowing against the policy. And I won't get into the specifics of it, but there's a distinction between borrowing from the policy and borrowing against the policy, right? So you can, if you've accrued cash value, you can certainly take that out to pay for medical expenses. It's certainly very possible.
Yeah.
Will it last? Hard to say. There's also additional riders that can be put on cash value policies that will accelerate the death benefit, where they'll pay out something if you're in a long-term care situation. But again, it's just
Yeah. What fits your situation?
what fits your situation. Right, exactly. Did we get that one, you think?
I think we got that one.
All right.
covered.
Are there policies that pay living benefits? Yes. Living benefits are simply cash value that's in the policy that you have access to and that you can use for any reason at your discretion. I think back to 2008 when everything kind of crumbled and you went to go borrow money from a bank and they flat out weren't lending, right? So to be able to go back to a cash value life insurance policy where you can go to your life agent and they can cut you a check, right then and there. There's no underwriting. There's no applying for a loan. It's what you have access to. So, pay living benefits. The living benefits are up to you. It's up to you in how you approach that policy, what you've set the policy up for, and what's most important to you, right? Because again, these are life insurance products. They're not sexy. They're not flashy. The market has some new products out there, IULs in particular, where they're trying to make them sexy and flashy. And
It's not.
be careful. Be careful, right? Get all the facts, right? Because your life insurance policy should be boring and simple. In my humble
In
opinion.
your opinion.
In my humble opinion. Right? There are many people that I'm sure would love to argue with me about that one. How do I determine how much life insurance I need? Great question. So again, individual choice. An easy way to do it, there's a couple ways to do it, right? The easiest way to do it is get out a piece of paper. On the left column, write the word life very large. L-I-F-E, right? L is for loans. Who do you owe money to? Do you want that to be paid off in the event that you pass away too early, right? Who is going to pay that loan if you're not here, right?
Yeah.
Do you want to burden your family? Do you want to just take care of it and make sure it's good? Could be a mortgage, could be a credit card, could be a car loan, could be student loans. Doesn't matter. Loans. L for loans. I is your income, okay? Do you want to replace your income? Who counts on your income, right? How long do you want to replace it for? A year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? It's up to you, right? Those are conversations and thought processes that you need to have. But the I is for income. F is for final expense. Funeral, what is it going to take? Do you want to be buried in a pine box in the backyard for $500? Or like we talked about earlier, do you want the Elvis impersonator and a pink Cadillac at your funeral?
Yeah.
Right? Could be $2,000, could be $200,000. So, but again, those are something to take into consideration. E is two things. If you have kids, it means education, right? Do you want to pay for college? Is that important to you? Talked to a lot of folks that that's not important to them. I want my kids to fend for themselves. Everybody's different, right? It could also mean everything else, right? Is there a charity that you want to give to? Is there a
We are
legacy?
here in case you want
Well,
to do
there
that.
you go. There you go. The Lupus Foundation could be named as a beneficiary on a life insurance policy. So, there's a lot of stuff. But going back to that question, how do I determine how much I need? If you use that simple analysis of just spelling out the word life and then just kind of brainstorming, right? Excuse me. And then from there, you'll figure it out. You'll figure out what's important to you and how much you want to have covered. Right? But that's the simplest way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good way to do it.
Well, I need crayons and pictures and stuff to be very, very simple. It makes it a lot easier. Makes it a lot easier.
For all of us.
For all of us. Can I borrow against my life insurance policy? Yes, you absolutely can. I think we addressed that one.
Yep.
I have 2 children who are both healthy, but I have lupus. Should I get them their own policy now while they are healthy? Yes. I'm a biased opinion. It really boils down to what's important to you, right? Is it important to you to have something in place for them now when there's not going to be any, question or concern? That's your call, right? But in my humble opinion, everybody should have some piece of life insurance, either as a death benefit, as a savings account for part of their portfolio. Everybody has some conservative, slow-moving investment.
Yeah.
And or just generally taking care of your family. You
Yeah.
know? What legacy do you want to leave behind? That's what it boils down to. So, the children policies we talked about earlier, they have multiple benefits, right?
Mm-hmm.
This certainly being one of them. Right?
Yeah.
You're safeguarding yourself from any potential health concerns
Risks
health
yeah.
risks down the line that may develop, and it doesn't necessarily have to be lupus. It could be cancer. It could be diabetes.
Anything can happen.
Anything can happen. Anything can happen. So, yes, and they're not that much. You can certainly get some different quotes and just
Yeah.
see what works. Look at some different options. Do I need to buy a separate policy if I have life insurance through my work? Fantastic question. We get this one quite a bit. So, if you have it through your work, that's great. Here's some questions for you. What if you quit? What if they fire you? What if it closes? What if you're there forever, have a happy retirement? What are you going to do in retirement? Right? Those policies are not portable. They're group policies.
So you have to be a part of the group.
You have to be a part of the group and or convert it if you do leave the company.
Okay. And that's a whole different.
Well, basically, you're taking, excuse me, group life insurance is the temporary term insurance, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's inexpensive. It's the employer usually contributes. If you were to leave the company, the sponsor of the life insurance product, right, the company behind the employer,
Mm-hmm.
will give you the option to convert that into permanent life insurance. But know that conversion is going to be done at the age you are, when that situation occurs.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing to take into consideration is that our friends at the IRS determine anything over $50,000 from a group life insurance as taxable income.
Really?
Right? All other life insurance does not have any tax implications at the payout. So if you look, a lot of companies will have $50,000 life insurance offering.
Mm-hmm.
Some will have a lot more, but that is a caveat. Again, look it up, irs.gov. It's right there in their tax code.
That's good to know.
Good to know. So back to the question: do I need to buy a separate policy if I have it through your work? No, you don't need to. But usually, A, it's not enough. B, it's not portable. And C,
You have to.
you're going to
there,
have to
right?
be there.
Yeah.
Right? You better love your boss. But if you don't, it's always good to have an outside option, right? It's always good to have an outside option.
Perfect.
Good. Can I qualify for insurance if I am already disabled? Well, that is a broad brush to paint with. So we don't know what the disability is. I mean, we can assume that maybe for this presentation that it's lupus related. Can you be insured? Yes. Other than that, it really just depends on what it is and what the severity of is it. Going back to lupus specifically, this is a progressive condition, right?
Mm-hmm.
That
over
progresses
time
over
can get
time,
worse,
right?
yeah.
So, if you receive a diagnosis, your next day you should be talking to somebody like myself, right? Get those options out there, because the sooner you act, the more choices you have. That's really the bottom line, right? Does it preclude you? No. So lupus specifically, because it is a progression,
Mm-hmm.
and like we talked about earlier, those different ratings, there's 15, 16 different ratings. You will come back with a higher rating level before they start upping your medications, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before you start getting the treatments. I mean,
Yeah.
Christine, you can vouch for this.
Yep.
I mean, I've watched you for decades now, just working through this process, and it's I'm always so humbled by your effort and approach to it. Yeah.
Thanks.
You gotta be a sweetheart, right, in front of everybody else.
Right, I know. He's trying to be nice. That's all.
I'm
it is.
kidding. No, in all seriousness, I mean, that was a big part of it. That was a big part of it. Right? So, but again, it depends. So
Now we're back. Sorry.
So I don't know where it left off.
We're
there,
in
but
Silicon Valley, and our internet never works. It's amazing.
wrong.
So
Just
we
wrong.
were just on
Can
if
I
you're
call-
already disabled.
If you're already disabled. So the answer is yes, it depends on the situation. Don't make any assumptions. That's really the takeaway here. Don't assume that because of this, then this. Go through the process. Know for sure. Right? That's the only way you're going to find out for sure. Sit down, go through the application process, see what they come back with.
And that next question you just covered.
I just got diagnosed. Should I apply for life insurance now or wait a while? Yeah, wait about 5 minutes. Don't wait. Don't wait. For all those reasons. It's going to be less expensive. You're going to have more options. But if you are further down the line, again, take it for what it is. At least an option's better than an obligation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at least get something out there. Here's a good question. Is life insurance expensive? That's a relative term, right? Expensive to you or me may not be expensive to somebody else. So I'll give you a range. I have some clients, young clients, good health, paid $12, $15 a month. I have some clients who will use these policies as the savings piece, and they're using it for the living benefits.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking of one gentleman in particular. He pays almost $5,000 a month into his life insurance policy.
Wow.
So is it expensive? It can be, dependent on you. It depends on how you set it up. It depends on what's important to you about the policy, when it's functioning. But it can also be very inexpensive. So again, talk to a licensed professional that understands the ins and outs of the product. Get an education and make the best decision for you and your family based off of that. Expensive is a completely relative term. If you don't see value in something, it's going to be expensive, whether it's $2, right?
Yeah.
But if you see the value in it, maybe that 100, 500, 5,000, it's different. It's a matter of perspective.
Yep.
So good. A few more questions here.
2 last ones.
We will keep on moving. How do chronic illnesses affect my life insurance coverage? Again, completely individually based, depends on your situation, the stage of the chronic illness, what exactly it is, and the only way you're going to know for sure is to go through the process. Don't wait. Don't think. Don't assume. Go through the process. I don't mean to be a broken record on it, but that's the only way you're going to know for absolute sure what's going on. What's the situation? Go through the process. Last question I see here, Christine. Which chronic illnesses will affect my life insurance rates? All of them, right? How they affect them, so I can't say sitting right here, right now.
It just depends on the severity.
It just depends on the
where
severity,
you are.
how long it's been. Are you under doctor's care? Are you taking medication for it?
Mm-hmm.
Multiple factors that go along with that.
Cool.
So, with that, it's just the good news and the bad news is that there's no blanket answer.
Yeah.
Right? Everything is taken on an individual basis, depending on the situation. Hopefully they're priced appropriately based on that situation. And then at the end of that, it's up to you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think that's all our questions we've got. Yeah.
We get them all.
Everybody says great material.
Awesome.
So
Good stuff.
Let me step back in for a second.
We'll get the pretty back.
I'm limping. I'm just, whatever. It's not so pretty when you're limping. Anyway, so if you have any other questions for Joe, please feel free to reach out to him. I will post the information to get a hold of Joe on our website, and you can always call him. You can call me if you need anything. You can always call our office. Anything that you may need. We are based in California, but we can help you if you're in another state, depending on what your situation is. So reach out to us and let us know.
Yeah.
And that's it. So we'll see you next month. I'm not sure what our live is yet, but we'll see you next month. All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.